Hey folks, welcome to Roll of Law. Hopefully everyone can hear me just fine. I'm always worried about the audio when we start out, but I'm just going to start by noting that I've got a GoFundMe pinned in the chat there, and the reason why is that is the GoFundMe for Richard Hogue, who is of Hogue Law, also known as Virtual Legality. He's had a stroke. He is going to need funds for recovery, so if you're able, that's a great cause. So that is that's there. All right. So today we're going to be looking at two different statements. Actually, probably three statements, because there's a third statement that we can look at as well, and each of which sort of is a statement about sort of the future of gaming. And so we're going to have a look at these and just kind of break down what they tell us about the world. So they're very different statements, and what I want to do is kind of DBS them and to try to sort of get behind some of the corporate speak on this and what we can expect to see. Because I previously had a video, it was just out recently, and in that video I sort of talked about what is it going to look like to win? Like, what does it look like to actually win on this issue? And what does it look like not to win? And what they're trying to sell us is exactly what I predicted. I said that they would come to us with something that is not winning and try to present it to us as if that they had, as if they'd caved. So that's, we'll get to that. We're going to start out by looking at a better statement. So that is, and I'm just pulling it up here. All right, hopefully here we go. So Paizo announces system-neutral open RPG license. So this is from Paizo, and if you're wondering who Paizo is, well, they're the people who make Pathfinder. And Pathfinder right now is the biggest D&D competitor. It's the biggest competitor that has kind of the same feel, and it has the same feel because it came from D&D. So let's have a look at what all they say. So, and I love the art that they've got there. You know, it's a we're here to fight kind of art. So they say, for the last several weeks, as rumors of the Wizards of the Coast's new version of the open game license began circulating among publishers and on social media, gamers across the world have been asking what Paizo plans to do in light of the concerns regarding Wizards of the Coast's rumored plan to deauthorize the existing OGL 1.0A. We've been awaiting further information, hoping that Wizards would realize that, for more than 20 years, the OGL has been a mutually beneficial license which should not and cannot be revoked. While we continue to await an answer from Wizards, we strongly feel that Paizo can no longer delay making our own feelings about the importance of open gaming a part of the public discussion. So this is a good start, right? They're noting that they're having to respond to rumors because Wizards hasn't been clear. But yeah, we're going to see sort of what they're talking about here. So we believe that any interpretation that OGL 1.0 or 1.0A were intended to be revocable or able to be deauthorized is incorrect, and with good reason. We were there. That's a mic drop kind of statement, and I mean, properly, they were there, right? This Paizo was, a lot of the people from Paizo were Wizards people once upon a time that split off in part because they had sort of a difference of opinion as to what D&D should look like. All right. So, when they're saying we were there, they're going to be able to be witnesses on this issue. That's, I think, a really interesting thing that, but I mean, the aspect I've been talking about a lot is just willingness to fight, because this is going to be an expensive battle, and they're going to get to that too. So Paizo owner Lisa Stevens and Paizo president Jim Butler were leaders on the Dungeons & Dragons team at Wizards at the time. Brian Lewis, co-founder of Azora Law, the intellectual property firm that Paizo uses, was the attorney at Wizards who came up with the legal framework for the OGL itself. Now, that's kind of an annoying wrinkle. I don't like that wrinkle the most, because if he was one of the people, this creates a bit of a conflict, because he's got an inability to testify about some of those things because he was the lawyer. There are going to be issues of confidentiality and privilege that will probably knock him out as counsel. But Paizo has also worked very closely on OGL-related issues with Ryan Dancey, the visionary who conceived the OGL in the first place. And Ryan Dancey has been quite public in terms of talking about this and has been quite helpful. He is very much in support of the OGL. So Paizo does not believe that the OGL 1.0a can be deauthorized ever. While we are prepared to argue that point in a court of law if need be, we don't want to have to do that, and we know many of our fellow publishers are not in a position to do so. This is a pretty bold statement here, because they basically said, hey, listen, we're down to throw down on this one. We'll go to the mat if that's what it takes. This is a statement of willingness to litigate, and I like seeing that, because it means that at least somebody may be there to fight back. So, and it's going to be, if Paizo actually does take this to court, it's going to be a lot cheaper for a lot of other game publishers to make their make their positions known, because at that point, a lot of them may be able to act as interveners in that case to say, listen, we have an opinion too that the court should consider. And that, but just somebody there who's a big dog who can sort of bankroll this is that's a big factor. We have no interest whatsoever in Wizards' new OGL. And they shouldn't, because Wizards' new OGL is designed to try to stop this kind of thing. And I see people saying, so they can file an amicus brief? Quite likely, yes. That would be what I'd expect, is that if Paizo and Wizards go head-to-head, I expect we'd see a lot of people like Kobold Press and so forth filing amicus briefs to say, we have opinions on this one. And I don't think a lot of those opinions will be pro-Wizards opinions. I think you'd see a lot of people saying Wizards is in the wrong here. And I see if anyone could fight it, it's Paizo. They're that big. Yep. All right. And I am just going to shut off Discord because it's going off in my ears. All right. So if you're on the Discord trying to send me messages, I just shut it off. So, all right. See, some dimwit was assuring me that Wizards attorneys back in 2000 will be free to testify against them in any case. I suspect this is unlikely. Yeah, I can't see Wizards waiving privilege on this one. I am pretty sure that if they were like, hey, we're going to call your former lawyer, Wizards will have their own lawyer there saying, I instruct you not to answer any questions. I mean, there's just no way you'd call them, right? It's just the privilege issues. Privilege belongs to the client, not the lawyer. So even if the lawyer wants to testify, they're not allowed to. And in fact, the court just can't hear those, they just can't get that evidence. The only people who could waive that privilege would be Wizards of the Coast, and they're not going to. That's just a non-starter. All right. Where were we? Oh, yes. Instead, we have a plan that we believe will irrevocably and unquestionably keep alive the spirit of the open game license. That sounds promising, right, folks? All right. So they say, as Paizo has evolved, the parts of the OGL that we ourselves value have changed. Okay, that's a little more concerning. We don't know what that's about. When we needed to quickly bring out Pathfinder First Edition to continue publishing our popular monthly adventures back in 2008, using Wizards language was important and expeditious. Fair enough. But in our non-RPG products, including our Pathfinder Tales novels, the Pathfinder Adventure card game, and others, we shifted our focus away from D&D tropes to lean harder into ideas from our own writers. Cool, but you can see how the OGL here was a building block and a stepping stone that allowed them to do that. And I see attorney-client privilege is the privilege that's strongest in court. Yep. If I was called as a witness against one of my clients and my client hadn't waived privilege, the court would just say no, no, like this is not happening. Saying he was convinced that as it is a discussion of a public document, the framers are allowed to give evidence. Pretty sure public documents means government documents and legislation. Yes. That's exactly what that means. So as the attorney-client privilege protects civil and criminal cases and only applies to natural persons. A bunch of this is wrong already. Doesn't actually apply in trade law branches, such as a legal agreement attempt under IP. So much of this is wrong. Attorney-client privilege covers anything you might go to a lawyer for to get legal advice, including if you don't actually even end up hiring that lawyer. And it does definitely apply to corporations. There can be privilege with the corporation. Doesn't actually apply in trade law branches such as illegal. I mean, there's nothing inherently illegal here. They're not committing a crime. So this isn't like a conspiracy to commit a crime that would violate privilege. So no, I don't see anything here that would break privilege. All right. So by the time we went to work on Pathfinder 2nd Edition, Wizards of the Coast open game content was significantly less important to us, and so our designers and developers wrote the new edition without using Wizards' copyrighted expressions of any game mechanics. While we still published it under the OGL, the reason was no longer to allow Paizo to use Wizards' expressions, but to allow other companies to use our expressions. Now I like that statement, to just say, hey, we put this out to make sure we were sharing this with other people. So, and I see a good question, but I'll get to it later. All right. I've just started so I can come back to it. We believe, we always have, that open gaming makes games better, improves profitability for all involved. We'll come to that. And enriches the community of gamers who participate in this amazing hobby. And so we invite gamers from around the world to join us as we begin the next great chapter of open gaming with the release of a new open, perpetual, and irrevocable open RPG creative license, the ORC. So, if you ever wondered what would get elves and orcs working together, this is what we're looking at here. So that is sort of an interesting aspect on this. Now, the improves profitability. Let's talk a little bit about back in the old days, what the OGL was for. And the OGL was invented in part because a lot of the stuff that's out there for content is unprofitable, in the sense of not profitable for a big company to do. There's just not enough money in it. And so there might be enough money in it for, me. This is a side hustle at best. And what I mean by that is that if I never make $1 on this, and in fact, I think I'm at this point, I've made some money on this channel, but I'm going to spend money on this channel. I suspect I'm more at the breaking even than the profit. But, let's say somebody spends however many hours and they make $300. And, that was probably, a good 100 hours of work. That's not a great return on investment per hour, but people wanted to spend that time. And at the end of the day, $300, is enough to cover their costs and to let them make more stuff, right? Get their name out there, get known as this, be sort of, have people be aware of them, that kind of thing. But if you're talking about you are Wizards of the Coast, that's a huge money losing proposition, right? There's just no way for you to do that. So what they found is that a game system works better. More people want to play it if you actually want to, if you actually have all of these adventures and so forth that you don't really want to make. So they allowed that to be sent, to be hived off to the community. They said, community, you can have this, you can do this. And the community did, right? The community started doing all that stuff, and that was really important for the success of D&D. So when they say improves profitability for all involved, for a small content creator, they might be able to make a little bit of money on that. Not, again, huge money, not profits to the sense that it matters to Wizards of the Coast or that it's worth their time, but profit enough. And for Wizards of the Coast, it means that more people play D&D and more people buy their stuff and send them money, because at the end of the day, those products, it makes it a better product. Lots of people know that I'm a gun guy, right? I enjoy, I enjoy shooting and so forth. And the reason why certain firearms are popular is because they're really modular and you're able to swap parts in, and there's all sorts of aftermarket things. The AR-15 would not be nearly as popular for rifle if it wasn't for the fact that there's all these people making stuff for the AR-15, different triggers, different handguards, different, uppers, lowers, whatever you want for it, somebody out there is making it. That's really the concept we're talking about here. All right, let's keep going here. And there's some other people with, this is a good thought, and we'll come back to this. All right. So the new OpenRPG creative license will be built system agnostic for independent game publishers under the legal guidance of Azora Law, an intellectual property law firm that represents Paizo and several other game publishers. Paizo will pay for this legal work. Cool. Awesome. We invite game publishers worldwide to join us in support of this system agnostic license that allows all games to provide their unique open rules reference documents that open up their individual game systems to the world. To join the effort and provide feedback on the drafts of this license, please sign up by using this form. I'm going to sign up. I mean, I don't know that it's going to necessarily matter that they're going to, talk here, but I really like the idea of them saying, listen, we don't want this to just be something for us. We want this to be something that kind of spreads across things, because there's plenty of other games that I like that don't have anything like the OGL, and that are fairly closed systems. And that means that I can't make stuff for, right? Even if I want to. All right. In addition to Paizo, Kobold Press, Chaosium. So Kobold Press does a lot of like D&D stuff. Chaosium is Call of Cthulhu. Green Ronin, I think, puts out the Mutants and Masterminds that I quite like. Legendary Games, Rogue Genius Games, and a growing list of publishers have already agreed to participate in the OpenRPG creative license. And in the coming days, we hope and expect to add substantially to this group. Nice. The orc will not be owned by Paizo. I think this is important. Nor will it be owned by any company who makes money publishing RPGs. Azora Law's ownership of the process and stewardship should provide a safe harbor against any company being bought, sold, or changing management in the future and attempting to rescind rights or nullify sections of the license. Ultimately, we plan to find a nonprofit with a history of open source values to own this license, such as the Linux Foundation. So they're looking, one of the problems that we have is that Wizards experienced some changeover, right? And the changeover here is that, and I see people saying I should check out the new Legal Eagle video. I watched part of it. I need to watch the rest of it, but it's been a busy day. So this is basically saying that instead of us having it, because that concern that we have at that point is that if they have this license, that they can change management the same way Wizards has, and then decide that they want to mess with it. And they're saying we're going to protect that. We're going to put this off to somebody who doesn't have a financial stake in it. I really like that as an idea. I like that as an idea. And Mark, I saw your comment there. We will come back to that here. Of course, Paizo plans to continue publishing Pathfinder and Starfinder, even as we move away from the open gaming license. Since months' worth of products are still at the printer, you'll see the familiar OGL 1.0A in the back of our products for a while yet. While the OpenRPG creative license is being finalized, we'll be printing Pathfinder and Starfinder products without any license, and we'll add the finished license to those products when the new license is complete. This, I feel, is them saying, please don't hate us, because we're going to publish more stuff, and some of it will be under 1.0a. Please don't take that as us supporting Wizards. So that's what this line means. This is like, hey, help. And I see, or go bankrupt and have the rights sold off. Yes, that is also a thing. We hope that you will continue to support Paizo and other game publishers in this difficult time for the entire hobby. Yeah, I will probably be picking up Pathfinder. You can do your part by supporting the many companies that have provided content under the OGL, and they listed a bunch of them. Support Pathfinder and Starfinder by visiting your local game store, subscribing to Pathfinder and Starfinder, or taking advantage of our discount code OpenGaming during checkout. So we are selling stuff. This is their product placement for themselves here. But I'm amused that they've made a discount code to mock Wizards of the Coast. For off your purchase, the Core Rulebook Pocket Edition, or Pathfinder Beginner Box. Support Kobold Press, Green Ronin, Legendary Games, Roll for Combat, Rogue Genius Games, and other publishers working to preserve a prosperous future for open gaming that is both perpetual and irrevocable. Nice. We'll be there at your side. You can count on us not to go back on our word. Forever. That is a nice little mic drop there to mock them here. So, yeah. All right. So let's just bring me back up here. So I see people saying the list of collaborators also doesn't inspire confidence. Green Ronin and Chaosium have also made some rather overt political statements. This is people getting into sort of the, whether it's woke or whatever else. I'm less concerned about, that aspect. If that's what, if you're upset about the political views of the people you're buying games from, don't buy games or movies or anything, because everybody has political views. And everybody has political views out there. It is what it is. All right. So, what is it? Now, I see one argument that I did find compelling on Wizards of the Coast's behalf is that if third-party publishers create content that Wizards of the Coast was planning, then they're taking market share away from Wizards. Sure, but most of this stuff Wizards wasn't, and overall, Wizards is succeeding. Wizards is ahead of the game. So, all right, let's talk a little bit about what Paizo might be setting themselves up to do, and that is... I think Paizo is positioning themselves to possibly become the big dogs here. Dungeons and Dragons has forever been the name, to the extent that a lot of people take Dungeons and Dragons as meaning tabletop role-playing games in general. And that's partially because tabletop role-playing games has too many bloody syllables. But many people, like if I'm playing Blades in the Dark, a lot of people will say, oh, are you playing your Dungeons and Dragons game again? No, I'm playing Blades in the Dark, but people just think of it as that's what that means. But if Wizards of the Coast is going to close up their ecosystem and scare off a lot of the third-party content creators, and those people start moving over to Pathfinder, eventually Pathfinder is going to be the better game. And it might be already, but eventually Pathfinder is going to be the better ecosystem. And so the ecosystem on that means that there's going to be a whole bunch of other stuff. So that's tremendous. Paizo is taking a big leap here to potentially devour Wizards of the Coast. Now, that's not going to be a 5-minute or even 5-year process. This is something that they're setting up for a longer term. And I see people saying Pathfinder's default setting sets my teeth on edge. The wonderful thing is that if we actually get a good license out of this, you can knock out other settings, right? I've got a setting I've been working on that I have mothballed, and then I can't really do much with, or I'm not doing much with at the moment. But maybe I'll move it over to Pathfinder. Maybe that becomes an option, right? And then you can play that there. So And I see Kobold Press has raised the flag for a new system. Yep, they're looking to create a new alternative. So that is, that's fantastic. And I see Nogard Codesmith. I used to hide my D&D books under my bed. I think my mom was more upset when she found them than she would have been if they were nudie magazines. Lots of us were in that, lots of that were in that position. Now, this sort of gets to what we're looking at here, which is that we don't know what the orc is going to look like. We don't know what that is going to be like, and whether it's going to have clauses that we think are obnoxious, right? Right now we have this promise of a license, but we don't know what that's going to be like. Now, people are worried about a morality clause, and I don't think that that's going to be something super easy for them to exercise, because Paizo said that their plan is not to own the license. And if they don't own the license, then how does that morality clause get exercised, right? I don't see that as going to be a likely thing, but we'll have to see. I see Paizo seems to be working to pick up the Wizards of the Coast licensing orphans. A good move. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And I have 2 products that were on the go and like getting close to done. Like I was starting to, actually had reached out to a couple of artists, and now they're backburnered again. I actually had to tell the artists, hey, sorry, chill. And to their credit, they were like, we get it. We get it. So we're going to have to figure that out there. And they say Wizards had a monopoly on the talent pipeline. They had the RPG version of Pax Romana. So yes, it was quite literally that all of the people who, if you were getting started, the way you'd get started on this was just by making stuff for the OGL. So I'm actually just starting this or signing up right now. So I'm signing up for their sort of setup here. Their, what do you call it? I'm so tired. I've not been sleeping as well as I'd like for a while here, but I'm just signing up for their system to see what they're going on here. So I would like to get a copy of that license. I would like to see what all is coming, because as soon as we get a publicly viewable copy of the Orc, I'm going to be reviewing it, because there's lots of people who we want to see what this looks like. So I see, in relation to conflating Dungeons and Dragons with Blades in the Dark, how does that spell for copyright similarly to Coca-Cola, etc.? Could we slap Wizards of the Coast with making D&D a generic term? I don't think we're there yet. But enough, possibly. See, Hasbro can buy out any third-party producer that they want. They would rather shut them down. I mean, yeah, if Wizards came to me and said, we want to buy Roll of Law and here's, $3 million, I can tell you, you'd be seeing Wizards ads up here and you wouldn't be seeing my my elven face. It's just there's enough money that would get people to sort of to deal with that. See, did the cat eat no cats? Zora's a dog, but she ate the cord out to the garage. I haven't replaced it yet. And I see, well, Mind Flayer did become generic, so it's far closer than most people think. It's possible, but I don't think Dungeons and Dragons is quite there yet. All right. And I see somebody saying, I understand that Kobold Press's project, Black Flag, is under Paizo's Orc license and possibly using it. They might, but we haven't actually seen the Orc license yet. So we'll have to see what's going on there. And I note it would take decades of Hasbro not protecting the D&D trademark before it became genericized. Yeah, and Hasbro does protect the D&D trademark. Like if you put out a book and you started saying Dungeons and Dragons and you didn't refer to it, you were referring to something else, they would probably send their lawyers after you and enforce that. So, all right. So I see Runkle has declared his sellout price. Someone take him up on it. $3 million would buy me a lot of vacation space. So, all right, let's have a look at a different kind of statement here. But First, I'm going to bring up a statement that I've only actually found in my channel comments, so I can't really bring it up just because there's a whole lot of other stuff there. So I'm just going to read this other statement because I said we would sort of look at 3 statements, and the next one we're going to look at is real short. It says, so this is Critical Role's official statement. Apparently, I haven't been able to actually track down this on Critical Role, so I'm just taking their word for it. And I see blame the guy with the eye patch. I'm not sure who that is, but I should check. Oh, Indestructiboy says hi. Awesome. Welcome aboard. So this is the statement from Critical Role. And I'm going to cover this because I think it kind of tells us some interesting things that they don't say. All right. Critical Role has always supported creators in game development in the tabletop space. We stand by our industry peers, as well as anyone who takes a risk creating a new system or developing an original idea. The beauty of gaming comes from the opportunity to share inclusive, diverse, and compelling stories from a wide spectrum of creators. That's exactly why we launched our own game publishing company a few years ago, because we believe that broadening the field of creators boosts the entire industry. The success we've experienced is thanks to the passion and interest of the greater tabletop community, and we commit to fostering an environment that allows everyone to the opportunity to easily share the stories they wish to tell. From Critical Role. So this tells us a few things. I mean, they spend a lot of time talking about creators and industry peers and so forth, right? This is the kind of statement that tells me an important thing about Critical Role, which is that they have a non-disparagement clause. This tells me for sure that they have a non-disparagement clause, and that they can't say anything bad about Wizards of the Coast without getting sued. That's what this means, right? And they're hinting that they want to see more that they like the OGL. That's what this is hinting. I also see people talking about inclusive, diverse, etc. That's because Wizards right now is trying to throw around some shade because they know that if they use the racism word, that it's going to get a lot of people to their side, just because they're throwing out scary stuff, right? That's what they're throwing out. All right. Now let's sort of look at some of the things sort of that I starred here. Say, as someone that's still pretty new to tabletop RPGs, I totally understand why this is absolutely S for content creators, but will it affect the people that play privately at home? And what I mean is, do you think this will mean people at home will stop using D&D? I'm probably not going to run a home game of D&D for a while. So my tabletop will be playing other stuff. So if you want to play D&D, my tabletop is shut down on that. The other thing is that it will affect people at home, because, you might be the person who just owns the player's handbook and sits down, and you own the player's handbook and a little bag of dice, and that's it. And you sit down and you want to play. Well, you've probably already played something like Curse of Strahd. You've probably already played that before. Maybe you've already played, a bunch of the other stuff, and you want to try something new, but your DM might not be good at creating adventures, because not everyone is, right? There's a whole bunch of different skills involved in DMing, and some people are good at some, and some people are good at others. I played with a guy who did great voices and was really good at running combats and so forth. But if you ask him to sit down and write an adventure, he couldn't do it at all. So yeah, that's a guy who goes online and buys adventures that are probably mostly made by like third-party creators, because quite frankly, Wizards has been putting out some really crappy ones lately. So yeah. So you'll see it, right? You'll see people like somebody like that is probably going to go, I'm looking to move to something else. If you have the risk of getting sued if you're making D&D stuff, then you may want to look at other stuff. I see somebody saying that there's an American Bar Association on the OGL. I'm just going to pull that up because that's interesting. Looks like we're getting this off of Reddit. How long ago was this? Oh, this is, I see something from 2015. That's a little too long ago. So I don't know what we're looking at. I'll try to track that down. See, writing a good adventure and running a good game are two different skills. It's very hard to be good at doing both. And I know people who are excellent at writing like adventures and content and stuff suck at running a game. Like it happens. I'm okay at both. I really like writing adventures and so forth. I will happily say David at Prototopics is a better dungeon master in terms of running a game than I am. I'm seeing somebody saying that I retweeted the ABA thing. So now I got to check and see. I think the ABA thing was actually a quote as opposed to that. But now I'm just trying to check here. Oh, yes. So that is, let's see if we can just bring this up right now. All right. I did retweet it. So let's have a look here. All right. Present, share screen, and there we go. Okay. So we'll look at a third statement here. American Bar Association. A leaked draft from December of the open gaming license for the popular role-playing game Dungeons & Dragons threatens to crack down on the right of third-party products to use the gaming system to create their wares for free. Third parties would owe a percentage of profits and have to register all products, including past ones, with the parent company, Wizards of the Coast. The ABA remains partial to Chaosium Incorporated's role-playing game Call of Cthulhu, where players can assume the roles of heroic lawyers, among other things. Come on, guys. That's a little bit of an oxymoron, right? Heroic lawyers? Come on. And where the ability to speak Latin and legal knowledge can be more powerful than a Tarrasque, just like in real life. So, I mean, it's not really a full statement. It's a, sort of a cheeky tweet is what I'd call that one. But it's telling us there's a lot of people getting involved in this in some interesting ways. So, and I see here they would not have to owe a percentage of their profits. They'd have to owe a percentage of their revenue. Yes. And this is important because, in fact, the percentage they might owe might actually be larger than their profits, such that their profits are negative. Now, I see, is the American Bar Association correct to call it a draft? Wizards called it that, but everyone else has been saying that it only became a draft after the huge pushback. Yeah, we'll talk about that too. All right. The problem is, if ORC includes a revocation clause for people that make offensive content, Paizo is like Wizards of the Coast in that regard, and possibly worse. Paizo is saying that they're not going to actually control it, that they're going to hand this off. So at that point, how do they revoke it? Paizo is actually saying, listen, we shouldn't have this power. So we'll have to see if they keep that promise. I see, nope, per WTO, you have to actually have a contract as a legal entity for a lawyer to be bound, and the OGL 1.1 did have voiding clauses, which drop it from a contract to merely an illegal agreement. No. This is one of the people saying that there's no solicitor-client privilege. No. Just no. So this is talking about legal. He makes an argument that you don't need the OGL to create compatible 5th edition content. I agree to a certain extent, and I'm going to be doing a video about Wizards of the Coasting an adventure. Like, let's do an adventure that doesn't connect to their system in any way, but still works for D&D. And so I would agree with this. The problem is that you have to be in a position to be 100% defensible from what you might call lawfare, or LAWFARE. So it's sort of a metaphor with warfare, because you don't want to end up in a situation where you're getting sued and you have to pony up huge money. The way to do that is to make sure that you are in a position where their claims would not survive a motion to dismiss, because that is keeping things a little cheaper. None of that's going to be legal advice. It's just going to be an example of how I might do it, but again, if you want to put anything out, you'd need to talk to a lawyer. So yeah. And I see, yes, I'm completely on board with Paizo, specifically because they're handing off ownership of the orc to entities that would not benefit from harming it. Yeah, that is, I think, a really, really big thing there. So, yeah. See, you're either a West Coast or Canadian lawyer. I am a Canadian lawyer. To think legal privilege extends to legal entities as a whole instead of individuals within trade, or plain ignore that Wizards of the Coast only power was PR. Sorry, man, you're just wrong here. Corporations have personhood. That's kind of what they're looking at here. See, since all of their actual relevant IP protections in the form of copyright instead of trademarks expired mid 4E. Maybe. Not if you want to make 5th edition stuff. I mean, there's gonna be issues there. I see the fact that we need to talk to a lawyer to make GD Adventures just sad. Yep. So I see my problem with it is that a nonprofit can still be co-opted. The thing is that if you don't intend to, all right. If you don't intend to actually, have somebody in control, you wouldn't put in those kinds of powers that get exercised by the controller, right? That's the key thing there. So, all right. Further things there. I don't care about the company's political views. I wouldn't have clients if I did. What worries me is trying to force a clause allowing for censorship into the license. And I don't see that there's going to be likely to be a censorship clause there because they don't plan to exercise it. And the thing is that if they don't plan to control the license, why would they put in a clause that could potentially be used against them, right? Because Paizo at that point would be equally vulnerable to the abuse of that clause as anyone else if it's going into a third party. So, and I see if nobody owns the license, who's the contract with? It would be between each individual creator and each individual, user of that content. So, I do think that they can establish privity of contract on all of that. It's just a question of who actually owns the rights to manipulate the contract. So, do I think the blowback from the fans will tank the movie? Maybe. Ultimately, I don't think fans are even the main audience for the movie. I think that the main audience for the movie is just people in general, many of whom have never picked up a role-playing game book. So, yeah. All right. The only question on attorney-client privilege is Wizards still a continuous entity, or are they a new corporate person with the Hasbro purchase? Was OGL one Wizards or TSR? These rights and obligations can be transferred between companies. And, I don't know what the corporate structure of Wizards is because they may be multiple companies. But, yeah, I suspect Wizards will be a company, Hasbro will be a company, but they might have sub-companies and corporate structure gets chaotic. And this is worth noting. Seriously, does anyone know the history of D&D movies? Tanking one isn't exactly a challenge. Yeah. We'll have to see how the movie does. It seems right now to be on track to be mediocre. I don't know that it's going to be a major bomb, but it'll be. It looks like it's going to be sort of like a movie that is mildly profitable, but not enough to make it so that people are like rushing to make a sequel for it. So, all right, let's go and look at a different kind of statement. And this one is the Wizards of the Coast statement. And this one, a lot of people are upset about it, and they're not wrong. So if you're thinking I'm going to be like, if you thought that sentence was going to end with, but I'm not, no, let's go through this and start taking things apart. I see people noting Cyberpunk 2077 and all the Cyberpunk genre movies have not spurred interest in the Cyberpunk RPG. Yep. So, yeah. And let's have a look here. All right. So when we initially conceived of revising the OGL, it was with three major goals in mind. First, we wanted the ability to prevent the use of D&D content from being included in hateful and discriminatory products. Second, we wanted to address those attempting to use D&D in Web3, blockchain games, and NFTs by making clear that OGL content is limited to tabletop role-playing content like campaigns, modules, and supplements. And third, we wanted to ensure that the OGL is for the content creator, the homebrewer, the aspiring designer, our players in the community, not major corporations to use for their own commercial and promotional purpose. So do you see what they're doing here? What they're doing here is they're telling you, look at all the people you should be afraid of, and you should go along with what we're saying, because look at the scary stuff. Look at the scary things. And I've got a little bit of video here of what Wizards wants you to be thinking of when they say, hateful and discriminatory products, Web3, blockchain games, and NFTs, crypto bros, and big corporations. Well, they want you to be thinking of this. Yeah, look at the scary thing. And this is a really common tactic where they're like, look at the scary thing. So clearly we're the answer to the scary thing. And I'm going to tell you, listen, I don't support hateful or discriminatory products, but I also don't see a reason to worry about them, because historically that stuff has failed. There's an RPG, the Fatal RPG, which is fantasy adventure to adult lechery. It's terrible. The only reason anyone still looks at it is just as an example of how bad a role-playing game can get. But nobody plays it. Like, if you actually wanted to sit down and play a game of Fatal with somebody, you could advertise all year and you still wouldn't get, a table full of people. It's a game that is like rampantly racist, sexist. It's the only game I know of where, your stats will include things like the circumference of your orifices. It's just ridiculous. So yeah, it's that stuff exists and will continue to exist. People are going to write stuff, like that. The problem is that this, like, the market handles that. The answer that I have to all of these terrible products being put out is that I just don't buy them. Like, I don't own a copy of the Book of Erotic Fantasy because I don't want it. I don't own copies of some of these things because I just don't want them. And for the people who do want them, that stuff is going to exist. So yeah, this is just really intended to sort of scare you with a bunch of like scary whatever. And yeah, so I also don't trust Wizards of the Coast with this power. And that is because they've noted that they want it to be entirely in their discretion. So, it might be fatal that they say you aren't, that you can't make, but it could equally be Pathfinder, and they'll say, oh, well, we've decided in our sole discretion that it's, that it's racist or that it's, whatever. And Wizards doesn't exactly have the best track record here. Like, even if I was super like a crusader against, all of these things, I feel like Wizards is maybe not the best choice. They, D&D's history, as recently as like however long ago, they had to do a big backpedal on, whoops, did we accidentally, put out a, what is it, a Spelljammer race that we are backing away from in a, in a major way. I see a lot of people are saying that they're okay missing the clown. Come on, the clown was a funny gag. All right. So, yeah. All of this you should just basically take as they are being manipulative. That's what that is. Continuing on. Driving these goals were two simple principles. Our job is to be good stewards of the game, and two, the OGL exists for the benefit of the fans. Nothing about those principles has wavered for a second. Your job is not to be good stewards of the game. Your job is to make your stuff. You don't need to run everyone else's stuff. You don't have any responsibility for other stuff that other people put out. So, no, your job is not to be good stewards of the game. Your job is kind of to mind your own business sometimes. So, yeah. Nothing about those principles has wavered for a second. I'm just going to, come out here and give an example here on the whole, discriminatory products thing. Because there was a guy a while back who put out, he tried to put out a thing with, traits. And one of the traits in there was attention deficit. And I was like, hey, I kind of think that, my take on that was, that's a little obnoxious the way he did it. But my take on that is just to say, hey, I think that's obnoxious. I'm not going to use it at my game. I don't see that it's Wizards' job to crack down on that dude just because he was. And the other thing is, even though a lot of the people with, sort of the mental illnesses and so forth, and that he was trying to sort of capture, basically said, that's kind of insulting. The guy was actually trying to write something to be inclusive. That was his idea. And so they were trying to say, we're going to add more inclusive contents, that if you want to play somebody with attention deficit, just you can use this. And I was like, nah. So, you run into that when you get people who put in rules for, here's a really cool combat wheelchair. There'll be some people who are like, yes, this is fantastic for our games. And some other people who will be like, yeah. So this comment right here really sums it up. Stewards of the game equals control. Yeah. When they say they want to be good stewards of the game, they want power. We want power. So, all right. So that was why early drafts of the new OGL included the provisions they did. Also because you're money grubbing, yeah. The draft language was provided to content creators and publishers so their feedback could be considered before anything was finalized. This is just straight up a lie from what we've seen, from what we've heard, because plenty of people have said, listen, you have actually, you sent this to us as a contract ready to be drafted. So why is it now that they're saying that it was just for feedback? Literally none of the people they said, they sent this to said, oh, right, I'm getting this for feedback. They're saying, no, this was something that was ready to go. And I see somebody here with a good comment. The designer of the combat wheelchair is actually incredibly upset with this latest statement. They're practically using minority groups as a shield here. They absolutely are. They 100%. All right. So, in addition to language allowing us to address discriminatory and hateful conduct and clarifying what types of products the OGL covers, okay. Our drafts included royalty language designed to apply to large corporations attempting to use OGL content. It was never our intent to impact the vast majority of the community. Again, this is the scary people. I'd play the clown again, but I see the chat was sufficiently traumatized the first time. But yeah. All right. However, it's clear from the reaction that we rolled a 1. Guys, this seems like basically the marketing people, like their PR people, sent this around and is like, I need a game metaphor for doing bad. Yeah. It isn't that you screwed up. Like, this is not like I made a mistake. It is clear we got caught, and we didn't mean to get caught. So it has become clear that it is no longer possible to fully achieve all 3 goals while staying true to our principles. So here's what we're doing. Yeah, it's no longer possible because people are canceling their D&D Beyond subscriptions. So, yeah. And the goal that they really can't achieve here, that they really, really wanted to achieve, is maximizing their money. So, yeah. The next OGL will contain the provisions that allow us to protect and cultivate the inclusive environment we are trying to build and specify that it covers only content for TTRPGs. So remember how I said that they were still going to include some of the really bad clauses? Well, they're still going to include some of the really bad clauses. Like they're specifically going to include a clause that allows them to de-license any product on the planet. Why the hell would anyone make content if they can just summarily knock your product out? Why? Like, you would be crazy to write, my setting has like hundreds of hours in it. My rogue book has hundreds of hours in it. Why would I put that out under a document that just where they can say, nah, out it goes. Like, we're kicking this out. So yeah. And I see people can hear Zora running around in the backyard. She's having a grand time. She's playing with Potter. So yeah, I see more like they rolled a 1 on deception. That's exactly it. Got to keep it relatable. Someone in that meeting said, and absolutely failed. Yep. So saying, Runkle, where did you find that clown video? I have a subscription to Envato Elements that gives me stock footage. And I also have stock audio. So I combine the two to make scary clown video. Because, yeah. All right. Yeah, D&D players hate cheaters, and Liches of the Coast is trying to cheat. They didn't roll a 1. Yeah, we're kind of used to seeing the player at the table who always rolls really well, but also rolls out of people's view. That's what we're looking at here. All right. So they've said specifically that they're going to keep the clause that allows them to just deauthorize any content that they want. That means that other expressions such as educational and charitable campaigns, live streams, cosplay, VTT uses will remain unaffected by any OGL update. Unaffected by. That doesn't mean that they're going to have them continue to use the previous OGL. What that means is that they're going to ban those uses. That's what they're coming down to. And so they specifically, the key thing here is this bit right here, VTT uses. Why? Because the whole point of this, the main thing that they want to do is to push everybody to their virtual tabletop. They want a monopoly on the virtual tabletop for D&D, and they want to make that virtual tabletop a microtransaction hell. So this is, they're still keeping that extremely crappy thing. And when they say that other uses will be unaffected by, no, they'll be 100% affected by you canceling the OGL 1.0 and not using it going forward. This is really deceptive. This is straight up, and quite frankly, this is the kind of language where if I was doing a contract negotiation, like if I was buying a car, and I have done this, if I'm buying a car and the person who I'm trying to buy the car from is using this kind of language use, I'm getting up and I'm walking out. Like, I am leaving out of this, or I'm leaving because I can no longer trust what that person is saying. This tells me that this is somebody who is just straight up lying here. And I see unaffected by sounds like wasn't covered and still isn't covered. The thing is that it was covered, like it 100% was. And puppies are being a little too noisy, but we'll have to see. Hopefully Mrs. Runkle brings them back in. But yeah, I see Wizards of the Coast would monetize like Diablo Immortal if they could get away. That's the whole point of this. What they want is that you're going to go online on their virtual tabletop And instead of, like I got started, our minifigs when I got started were this Legos. We just used Legos. It worked actually pretty well. We had a big gray sheet that had grid squares on it. So, yeah, that's what we used, was just, Lego figs. But now you can buy a mini for whatever. You can go and shop for one. But what they want to do instead is have you go and buy like the dwarf fig. Like, some of you know that I was playing Gimlet on Lawyers and Dragons, hope to be doing so again. And Gimlet is a sort of larcenous gnome. Well, they want me to pay $8 for the base gnome figure. And then they're going to say, well, if you want him holding a spell book, that spell book is $1.99. And if you want him holding a bag of cash in his other hand, that's, also $1.99. And if you want the spell book to be green instead of brown, well, we'll sell that to you as an add-on for 99 cents. And yeah, somebody saying, was that your Legolas Lego guy? Yes. So somebody sent that to me. It is fantastic. So basically they want to just be able to drain your wallet as much as they can. And they've said that they want to bring the kind of recurrent transaction that you get from video games into the D&D space. And when they're saying the recurrent transaction from the video game space, what they mean here is not like, hey, I bought a DLC for Borderlands. What they mean is, hey, Candy Crush, you have to keep putting money in it every 6 seconds if you want to keep playing. They want to basically make this into something where you have to keep throwing money at it all the time. And it's going to be really expensive. So I see things. There are many wonderful folks making minifigs. Murphic Industries on Etsy has like a ton of the buy a model and print to resell things. Yep. So yeah, I have played literally with like our figures were different shapes of rock. But I see Mama Bear noting, but that's the beauty of RPGs. No money needed for poor folks. Well, that's the thing, is that they want to actually draw that away. They want to pull that away. The book that you buy at the role-playing game store is going to be obsolete because they've said that one D&D is going to continually evolve, which means that, the only place you'll be able to get the current rules is if you're paying to subscribe online. The only place and they want it so that the only place people are playing this requires all of the, all of this. And they're saying, online tools do not require the OGL. They do not use Wizards of the Coast words in any way, unless they're things like where you can look up look up a list of spells, that kind of thing. They're really looking to, what they want to get this to is that everybody at the table is sitting there with their phone in their hand, connected to a Wizards of the Coast online tool, and their credit card linked to it because they have to keep plugging things in. And I prefer a game where it's like, hey, put your phone down, right? We're playing here. So this still tells us that their big plan is to just drain money from us. So, and I see, oh yes, they're trying to ban searchable index, ban them. Yep, absolutely. They certainly are. All right. So let's, so they say content already released under 1.0A will also remain unaffected. Unaffected seems to be a language that they're using to say deauthorized, right? So, yeah. This guy here gives the worst legal advice. Everything this guy says, you should disregard. It's enough for a single word to be different or formatting change to happen for the expression coverage to be gone. No, do not listen to this person. They are an absolute, they're like a compass that always points in the wrong direction. So you can figure out what the right direction is by just doing the opposite of whatever that says. So it's still super useful, but yeah. All right. See, phones go in the microwave, and if you keep grabbing it during break, we're turning it on. Nice. All right. And you're done, sir. All right. So let's sort of keep going here because there's still more BS. What it will not contain is any royalty structure. All right. So I'm going to bet that instead of a royalty structure, we just get a, here's the point where it cuts off your license. So it will also not include the license back provision that some people were afraid was a means for us to steal work. I mean, it absolutely was a means for you to steal work. You're just going to tell us that you never intended to do that. But yeah. And I see somebody saying that was a little harsh for just having a bad opinion. Yeah, it's when he starts throwing insults. That's where he's gone. And it's just a 5-minute timeout. He can come back. But all right. That thought never crossed our minds. Bull. It never crossed their minds. Bull. Sorry, it did. 100%. They had to have known that. And the thing is that if they're saying, if any lawyer said it never crossed our mind that this would allow us to steal content, then fire that lawyer, because that lawyer is super bad at what they do. If they didn't say, hey, just so you know, this is like somebody going, yeah, sure, I happened to walk into the bank with my ski mask and my shotgun and my note saying, give me all the money and, whatever else. But I never intended to rob the bank. I was just taking my ski mask and my shotgun and my ransom note for a walk. Or sure, I had, 3 ounces of cocaine split up into little tiny dime bags, but I wasn't going to sell it. I just like to collect cocaine and keep it organized in little small baggies. No, none of this is believable. Sorry. Yeah. All right. And I see Dickie Bruck saying, I saw somewhere that the case law distinguishing perpetual from irrevocable didn't get established until after the original OGL 1.0a was written. Is that accurate? That's what I've heard. But the problem is that once the case law is there, the case law is kind of retroactive, if that makes sense. So what? Only 3 ounces? 3 ounces is a fair chunk of cocaine. Let's just be honest about that one. It looks really impressive when you divide it up into grams. All right. All right. Under any new OGL, you will own the content you create. We won't. That was also the original language. You would still have owned the content. They just have a license to do anything they want with it without paying you. So yeah. All right. Any language we put down will be crystal clear and unequivocal on that point. Yes, it's going to have big language saying you own the content. We just get a license to do everything we want with it, but you still own it, because they're really, being deceptive here. All right, carrying on here. The license back language was intended to protect us and our partners from creators who incorrectly allege that we steal their work simply because of coincidental similarities. This happens, but there's already a way to defend against that. You just, when they sue, you're just like, hey, here's our dev team and here's their process. This happens all the time in the movie industry. There's all sorts of ways you deal with this. So, yeah. As we continue to invest in the game that we love and move forward with partnerships in film, television, and digital games, that risk is simply too great to ignore. Film has been doing this for years without problems, right? The new OGL will contain provisions to address that risk, i.e. it's going to include the exact same BS that we hated. But we will do it without a license back and without suggesting we have the rights to content you create. We're going to see if it doesn't include a license back. I bet it does. Or it includes a waiver of lawsuit against any of that stuff, which is just as good, basically. So, yeah. We need a way to defend ourselves or defend ourselves against lawsuits after we steal things. Yeah. It's why do you need to defend yourself against stealing things if you're not stealing things? So, yeah. The new OGL will contain provisions to address that risk, i.e., new OGL will still force people to accept the clause that they cannot sue Wizards of the Coast by signing up. Yep, that's pretty much exactly it. So they're just basically saying we still want to be able to, to steal it. And yeah, this is how film does it. Film grad here, never send your script to someone. They won't read it. Wizards of the Coast can figure out how to do the same. In fact, not only will they not read it, they actually have people in the film industry who's like, if you send a package off to like a big name director, he's not opening his own mail. Somebody else is opening that mail. And if they see that it's a script, they run it through the shredder and they never talk about it because they don't want the director to have ever seen it or the producer or any of the big name people. They've got people to actually insulate themselves from that. Wizards of the Coast actually wants to do the opposite. They want a copy of everything you put out. Because, yeah. All right. New feature for 1D&D. Give us your bank account number and we'll calculate. We'll just calculate how much you owe as you play and automatically collect it from you. Price is subject to change with no notice. I mean, they're literal. I'm sure that their virtual tabletop, one of the first things it's going to ask you to do is connect your credit card. So, yeah. See. Or they could, not require the submission of the full text of the thing and not have employees access them. Voila. Now you need to prove they had actual access. Yeah. Yeah. The secretary opens it, reads the title, realizes the script, and circular files it. Yeah. It probably not even in the trash. They could put it right back into the shredder, and just so that you could never, so that nobody could ever accidentally read it. All right. So, your ideas and imagination are what makes this game special, and that belongs to you. Let's face it, what they think makes this game special is your wallet. And they don't think that belongs to you. They think that you're just temporarily borrowing it. And, they're going to get it back from you as soon as they possibly can. Yeah. We need your credit card to verify your age. Yep. And also to debit. Yeah, repeatedly. A couple of last thoughts. First, we won't be able to release the new OGL today because we need to make sure we get it right, but it is coming. You guys haven't released it yet. You're just, sitting there continuing to, just sitting there continuing to sort of backpedal. I'm sure that their PR people are going to be heavily involved in the next draft. And what we're going to see is, those comments that they have in the first draft OGL, those comments are going to be longer and more misleading while specifically disclaimed as forming part of the contract. So you're going to end up seeing, seeing these comments to explain the contract being, indirect. I'm going to predict that some of these are going to be basically directly misleading when you're looking at the actual language. Second, you're going to hear people say that they won and we lost because making your voices heard forced us to change our plans. Those people will be only half right. They won and so did we. First of all, Wizards, the person at your PR team that wrote this, they should arrive to work tomorrow to find their stuff in a box, and that box should be on fire because you should not have let that person near your public statements. This is a piss off. First of all, you're not going to hear anybody who knows what they're talking about say that they won. What you're going to hear is the people who know what they're talking about say, you're serving us a load of crap, because that's what they're doing. Making our voices heard has forced you to make a change, but you haven't made the changes you need to yet. You're, and pretending, oh, we're both winners. No, screw you. You're still trying to get into my wallet and back the heck off. Oh, This is such, yeah, this is the right comment here. It's gaslighting. Yep. All right. Carrying on here. Our plan was always to solicit the input of our community before any update to the OGL. Really? Is that why it had a date to come into effect of January 13th? You lying sacks of garbage? Like, I'm sorry. You know, this is just, you know, no, you didn't. You plan to just drop this on people and suddenly have a whole bunch of third-party publishers being forced to accept this as possible and scrambling to talk to a lawyer beforehand. And I'm betting a lot of them would have signed up to it because they've got a week to accept it or go out of business. And they would have signed up to it just, you know, out of an emergency panic or because they didn't read the actual, you know, book. So, oh, you liars. You liars. The drafts you've seen were attempting to do just that. Again, no, you liars. You liars. We want to always delight fans and create experiences that everyone loves. You want to delight fans? I can write you a press release that will delight fans. It's even one sentence. Cynthia Williams is no longer with Wizards of the Coast, and we wish her well in her next endeavors. And you know what? That second part you could leave out. I would probably leave it out. Just new PR statement. Cynthia Williams is no longer CEO of Wizards of the Coast. Fans delighted. Done. Right? And create experiences together that everyone loves. We realize we did not do that this time, and we're sorry for that. You condescending garbage water. I so wish Rick Hogue was sitting next to Ian talking about this. Me too. And again, his GoFundMe is linked in the description. Is it in the chat? It's the pinned comment. Go check that out. Yeah, this whole statement is the most massive insult to the community to think we're this credulous. Yes, this is like you walk in and you find your partner like in the middle of copulating with your best friend, and you know they're like, hey, she just really had an itch just really in there and I was just trying to help. Like, it's insulting not just because of what they're trying to do, but also just to think that you would actually believe that that's a thing. Yeah. Kickstarter signed a draft that was intended, like Kickstarter negotiated a better deal on, something that they're, that's supposedly just a draft. Like, yeah. See, Runkle, use the bleepers that you say all the words and get it all out. I have to figure out the configuration to get the bleeper to work properly again. So, yeah. They think we are all really stupid. They really do. They really, really do. All right. So, our goal was to get exactly the type of feedback on which provisions worked and which did not, which we ultimately got from you. No, you didn't. You got some very gentle feedback. The type of feedback you need is like, an elephant to do an Amber Heard in your beds. This is just such, they're clearly lying to us and they expect us to, to believe this. Any change this major could only have been done well if we were willing to take that feedback, no matter how it was provided. No matter how it was provided, you think you get to throw shade on how you got the feedback? You really think that's the position you're in? That you get to throw shade at how people, like, that you think you've been poorly treated? Oh, okay. Okay. Sure. Thank you for caring enough to let us know what works and what doesn't, what you need and what scares you. how do I phrase this? We are not 2 hours in, so I have to be careful because Wizards of the Coast, or because YouTube is cracking down on swearing. You guys can have a meal of corn that I've already had some work with. We'll put it at that. Yeah. Ooh. Ooh, this ticks me off how condescending they are. Without knowing that, we can't do our part to make the new OGL match our principles. Your principles are, we want to steal your money. Like, that is your principles. We don't want the new OGL to match your principles. We want the OGL to match the principles of somebody who has principles. Like, find that person, somebody who has an ethic, like not even ethics, but even just a single ethic, and, ask them for some help on this one. It's okay to copy their homework. Like, it's okay. That would be fine. This is the one time we'll allow you to copy somebody else's homework. Finally, we'd appreciate the chance to make this right. What that means is, please stop canceling your subscriptions. Please, folks. We love D&D's devoted players and the creators who take them on so many incredible adventures. We won't let you down. You already did, dudes. You already have. So hard. You have already let me down so hard with this statement, like you cannot believe. Like, this is the kind of statement Gimlet would write. And Gimlet is not a person to trust with your money. Gimlet is not a person to trust with a contract. Actually, yeah. So, yeah. Oh, somebody's saying, is Critical Role spoken out about this? BS. Critical Role has put out a statement that makes it very clear that they have a non-disparagement clause. Reading between the lines of that, they have a non-disparagement clause, and they would like to say F you, but what they can properly say is, we support independent creators. We support, innovation. So, yeah. This is the other thing that I think is really funny. We got somebody, noting there, the concept of 750,000 in revenue, not profit, but revenue, equating to large corporations, is a bit rich coming from a 400 million plus corporation. Yeah, it's really bizarre that they're sitting there trying to scare you about big corporations, and it's Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. Like, seriously? Yeah, this is Daryl Brooks trying to warn you that there's bad drivers on the road. All right. I got some super chats I should cover here. Tim Riggs, Wizards of the Coast has a fundamental misunderstanding of what owning the IP means in reality. That IP has value only because of the fans and their contributions to the gaming community. Yep, and if we walk away from their game, then the IP becomes worthless. Yeah, someone probably told Critical Role they'd get sued into oblivion if they so much as publicly asked someone to help them open a jar of pickles. You know what? I could actually see them getting a warning of, like, hey, by the way, your non-disparagement clause, we intend to enforce it. And yeah, if they posted something that, said, what do you call it? If they had something that was that coded of a message, they probably would get sued, honestly. So, Grim Darkness, I've used a wheelchair since birth. I find all the disability rules condescending and insulting. I play RPGs to escape, not to be reminded I'm disabled. Yeah, I mean, I actually see kind of a mix, and I've played with a lot of people with different disabilities. I've played with a lot of, people from the LGBT community, from whatever, because tabletop role-playing games are a great place to go if the world is being shitty to you. Sorry, YouTube, but if the world is being crap to you in various ways, it provides a great escape. And there's lots of places that are, that are tables that will, but you get two different kinds of people. You get people who sit down and they say, I want to play something similar to me and overcome difficulties. And that's a great playing style. Nothing wrong with that. I see a lot of people who play tieflings partially because they want to overcome the, sort of discrimination that tieflings get. And that went away now, because now tieflings are just different colored people that nobody cares about. Like, so, but you also see people who are just like, the last thing I want to play is something that is similar to me because my life is difficult. I don't play attention deficit characters. I mean, they will have attention deficit elements because I have attention deficit elements, but I'm not explicitly playing an attention deficit character and playing up the difficulties for giggles, because like I deal with that enough. So, see, one of my favorite things about Drow is that I'm hated. Yeah, I mean, it provides for a kind of storytelling. So them getting rid of all of that actually makes the game less interesting. So yeah, I still play older editions to 40K and D&D. The books are never obsolete. Companies want to have full control and remove physical media, DVDs, CDs, etc. I suspect you may see future editions of D&D that are just put out with no paper copies at all, just to say we have full, full control over all of this. So, yeah. Never thought I'd get to see the peasant railgun in action in real life, let alone hit Wizards of the Coast square in the backside. If you guys don't know what the peasant railgun is, it's a sort of thought experiment about how, as a free action, you can hand something to someone else. And so if you have a line of 1 million peasants, then they can hand it across to them, and it makes it all the way to the end in one turn, which means that it has to have been traveling at a given rate of speed. So if the last guy just lets it go, it's obviously got to fly at ridiculous speeds. So, yeah. That's what that's a reference to. And yeah, Wizards of the Coast is learning that, hey, you're a game where the only value is that you have a fan base. So the instant you don't have a fan base anymore, you're screwed. I see I love the peasant railgun. It's not so much a thought experiment as it is a glitch in the rules. Yeah, it is, except that properly by the rules, the last guy drops it and it just falls to the ground at his feet. But it's kind of, you have to use the rules and physics and kind of make them fight. See, in Lord of the Rings, elves and dwarves strongly dislike each other. Yeah, and people like Lord of the Rings, right? Nobody's sitting there going, like, hey, Legolas and Gimli are, throwing barbs back at each other. Therefore, this is a terrible story. It's actually them overcoming that and learning to trust and like each other that makes for a compelling story. And it's a story that's been told hundreds and hundreds of times. But yeah, Wizards of the Coast really out here pretending they're Rick Astley, but not nearly as funny as actually rickrolling someone. Yeah. The really stupid thing is that there were so many other ways they could have monetized this without being slimy. I mean, if they had just created their own virtual tabletop and, microtransaction the hell out of it, then, I mean, I'd be like, ick, I don't like their virtual tabletop, but that's it. So I'm hoping a reporter gets a total of DDB subs lost. That is going to be highly protected information right now. So, yeah. Davin Perry, thank you very much. Hasbro is the only company interested in D&D NFTs. Yeah. The thing is that I have a real great solution for someone selling D&D NFTs, which is I'm not buying one. I have no use for it. NFTs are largely a way to separate people from money. It's like buying a shiny tulip. Yeah. Having an icky virtual tabletop is useless without proactively shutting down competition. Yeah. The problem is they know they're actually producing a garbage product. Like they know that this virtual tabletop that they're going to be pushing on people is going to be a bad product. And that's why they want to shut down like Foundry and Roll20 and whatever else, because, yeah. Hasbro is a publicly traded company. They have to make financial disclosures. Yes, but they can do their best to cover that up. So they will try their best, and they only have to make their financial disclosures every so often. They don't want to release that right now, I'll tell you that. Noticed in this week's episode of Critical Role that they very specifically called Matt Game Master, not Dungeon Master. Could be a clue. 40 years of playing, and I am looking for a new system. I don't know if they usually call him Dungeon Master because I don't watch Critical Role enough. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just looking. Nicholas, hi, just started. It took Nokia less than 2 years to go from one of the world's biggest phone companies to sold to Microsoft for 5% of its peak value. Yep. And that's the thing, is that if Pathfinder overtakes them, then that's it. I mean, that ends up being a real spiral on that one. So that becomes a real big issue on that one. See, did Ian freeze? I don't think so. Yeah. Yeah, I'm seriously suspecting it'll be a subscription-only service with tons of pay now items. It's going to be even worse than that. It'll be like, if you want this, Golden Sun sword, you have to buy now. Limited, it's only available this month and never again, like stuff like that. So, yeah, it's a big deal there. So people are saying all right, people are saying they're having some problems. Let me try to fix that. All right, hopefully this will unhiccup things. There should be one hiccup, and then hopefully it'll be unhiccuped. So let me know if you guys are seeing problems with the stream. So, yeah. I see problem with a 3D virtual tabletop is that creating the models is effing expensive. 2D is dirt cheap, and anyone can create a token. Yep. The further thing is that, I mean, if I was making a 3D virtual tabletop, what I would do is I would actually put it up and say, we're going to have a marketplace for tokens. Anybody can make a token, and, you can sell it for anything or for free if you want. And so you might have independent people going, hey, here's if I had the 3D crafting skills, I might be like, here's a Gimlet token and put that up and be like, hey, it's for free, or it's 99 cents or whatever else. And then they can take 10% off whatever people pay. And they still would have made bank doing that. They're just they are just so, I actually genuinely think that they would have made bank doing that, just creating a marketplace for that. But that's not how they're doing it. This will be a business case in 5 years of how to ruin your company. Yep, I suspect you're going to see a lot of that going there. So, yeah. Yeah, exactly. The Steam strategy. That's what I've been saying too. Yep. They could put all sorts of stuff up there and just Steam. When was the last time that Valve made an actual product? Like an actual game? I mean, I guess there was Half-Life Alyx, and that was to sell the, Steam VR, and that's about it. So, yeah. Frustrating. NFTs are stupid and a scam. Accurate. Nothing there that isn't covered already by copyright, which already establishes ownership. Already accurate. So, I mean, I don't the OGL didn't cover a single image. So, and NFTs are usually, images. So why wouldn't you have this? Makes no sense. What is the NFTs? Are you actually putting out an NFT of Snillox snowballs or Snowball Swarm? Is that going out there as an NFT? Well, who would buy this? I think that the whole time of people buying NFTs just because it's oh, it's an NFT, I must own it, has passed. People have realized that NFTs are pretty much not a useful thing to own. I mean, Justin Bieber lost how much money buying stupid NFTs? And I mean, more power to him. I don't want to discourage Justin Bieber from losing money. But is this really a risk there? Is this really a threat? So, See another thing. I got a dumb legal question. When D&D Beyond made it difficult to unsubscribe, could this be illegal? It really depends on your local laws, because some places do have laws about unsubscription rules, and yeah, that could be a problem in some places. But honestly, it just shows how greasy they're willing to be, right? Because if they actually wanted to listen to people, they wouldn't be like hiding the unsubscription. So yeah. Yeah, Valve VR and Valve Steam Deck are products. I sort of said like a new game. They do make new hardware, and the hardware is really intended to sell more games, and it sells more games that are other people's products. Like, I don't actually know how much money Valve makes on the Steam Deck, but I do know that I bought games specifically because they'll work on the Steam Deck. Because I bought a Steam Deck. It's a great little machine. Valve makes huge money on other people's games right now. So I see in the EU you can go nuclear at them for that. In the US, not. Yeah, the US has pretty terrible consumer protections. People are asking about the Legal Eagle video, and I haven't watched all of it. But the fundamental thing that it should be entirely possible to make stuff to be compatible with D&D without running into things, I think is correct. The problem is that you need to be very careful, because Wizards is going to want to sue people, and Wizards is going to want to do that as much as they can. The other thing is that the big prize that they see here is the virtual tabletops, and virtual tabletops are going to have a much harder time. So virtual tabletops, you want to be able to do things like have it so that I click, and I click the fireball button, and I can drop the fireball on the tabletop, and show the affected area, but also so that I can bring up the rules, right? So that you can see, what does this fireball do? They're going to want to really sort of crack that down. Saying they're doing what Crunchyroll does, even ever people get mad at them by making it hard to unsubscribe when they're hemorrhaging subs. Yep. I see SRD does contain images. Yeah, fair enough. But I mean, still, who's going to buy an NFT for this? Yeah. Valve will continue to be awesome until Gabe dies. Then it'll be Video Game Disney. The day Gabe dies, I fear for my game library, because it is. I'm just looking at my library here. How many entries are there? 729 unplayed games. 748 uncategorized games. So 1,500 games. Yeah, I will be very upset on that one. Does any YouTuber cover the OGL scandal when it comes to Europe? It's like a barren desert. I don't know the European laws that well, and Europe has a lot of different stuff there. So, yeah. I see that's super easy in Foundry with Pathfinder. Yep, and quite frankly, if I was making a game, right? If I had a game, I would be sitting there and saying, like, listen, I want virtual tabletops to exist, because it makes it super easy for anybody to play my game, right? Like, let's say I make, Runkle of the Dungeons, we'll call that our and I would absolutely want I would be going to Foundry going, hey, can I just give you a bunch of content for you to put up there? Because ultimately, like, having all the spell texts and so forth on Foundry or Roll20 or whatever else doesn't tell somebody how to play the game. It just provides some of the information. So I would want people, I want to make it easy. I want to make it very simple for anyone else to do it. So yeah. See, burn it all to the ground. Well, the way to do that is by playing other games. I've been saying, I went and bought Blades in the Dark, I had a PDF copy, like a legitimate PDF copy. I went and bought a physical copy because a physical copy is much better for playing at the table. But that's really what they're noticing here. When they say, like, you guys gave us feedback, the only feedback that they cared about, and there was that leaked statement that I think is probably pretty credible, that basically said they don't care about you phoning in. They don't care about this. The only thing they care about is that D&D Beyond is hemorrhaging subscriptions. Keep doing that, right? Keep doing that, because the more people unsubscribe, the more they're going to have to look at this. And, I want to send a message to the, to Paizo and just be like, hey, let's talk Pathfinder. Let's talk orc. Because, yeah. And I also saw a good suggestion. It's way back there in the chat, so I can't bring it up here. But somebody was saying that something that actually works surprisingly well for a virtual tabletop is Google Documents. You can put your sheets in there, and then everyone can see it. Yeah, there are so many games out there. I see people recommending GURPS Dungeon Fantasy. That's an option. And I'm probably more open to horror games right now because they're so not Wizards of the Coast friendly. I'm going to be doing a series of things looking at games and basically saying, here is a game and here's why you should play it. This is how you sell this game to your table. And, I'm going to do a number of those. And that'll be games I want, so there's a bunch of them. Shadowrun. Yeah. In terms of the, I'm going to be going out to pick up a copy of Call of Cthulhu. I don't have it yet. I've got on order Delta Green, which is sort of Call of Cthulhu in the more modern era with like secret agents and, ex-military black ops against Cthulhu. So yeah, there's all of this stuff. World of Darkness, Paranoia, Rifts, Warhammer Fantasy. Yep. Paranoia is one of the most fun games I've ever played. If you get the right group for Paranoia, it is amazing. But you have to have the right group, because if you have the wrong group for Paranoia, in particular, I played a game of Paranoia with a guy who was like seriously trying to win at Paranoia. Nobody wins at Paranoia. That is not the point of Paranoia. That's not how the game goes. So, yeah. All right. So, let's see. Whoops. Why is nobody suggesting Kobolds Ate My Baby? I don't know that one. I've never played it. So, Gamma World is probably my favorite RPG no one has ever heard of. I've heard of it. But then again, I made an earlier reference to Fatal, which is probably one of the few games I won't recommend on this channel. Fatal, you should never play because, oh my God. So I've mentioned it elsewhere, but myself, I'm trying out Sword World, Goblin Slayer, Konosuba, which are 2D6 based tabletop role-playing game system. Nice. Come over to Call of Cthulhu. We have cookies. Yes, but those cookies might force a sanity check. You don't know what those are, what those contain. I see somebody says that the best thing about D&D 5e is that it's easily accessible. I think there's even more accessible games. I'm going to argue that I think Blades in the Dark is easier, and I'm going to organize a game for it. And the reason why I'm going to organize a game for it is just to show that, just partially to show how easy it is for people to learn. I see, wait, you think Fatal is worse than Human-Occupied Landfill? I'm not familiar with that one, but it sounds like it could be real awful. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to also share something with you guys. This is something I've been working on, and I've got to actually, the video file is too big right now for what I want to use it for, but I'm going to have to figure out how to shrink it down. But let's bring something up here. Hopefully it's firing up here. All right. So this is for a project I've been working on. Tell me if you guys like this little intro trailer. Sorry, folks, that played real choppy. The reason why that's choppy is because it's a big file and StreamYard is struggling with it. But yeah, it's struggling with it. So basically what I want to do is get a bunch of people who've never played a role-playing game and plunk them down in front of Blades in the Dark, do an explanation for it, and like, here's what it's about and so forth. And then we'll just see how it goes. We'll see how we can play it, if we can play it. And yeah, see, great ambiance, but man, as a professional photographer, that Dutch angle is killing me. You have no idea how hard it was to find that that bit of video. The only other bit of suitably useful stock video that I could find, they wanted like $300 for. And I'm gonna tell you, like, my streams don't make $300. So if I'm sitting there running a thing there for $300, like, that's a money losing thing. I'm not paying $300 to Adobe for this bit of stock video. The other thing I'm thinking, or I might end up spending more than $300 on a different trailer, but that's partially just because I want to support the people behind it. I see people saying, "What for a stock? You have no idea how much stock video costs. It's super expensive if you're not, sort of dealing with that." See people saying file is chunky. It is because that file is too big. So somebody's saying, did I use DaVinci to make it? I made that one in Adobe Premiere Pro, which I think is partially why it came out so so chunky. So have you seen D&D Short's latest tweet? There's apparently leaks accusing Wizards of the Coast execs for firing people for speaking out against 1.1 when asked their opinion. That would not surprise me at all. I'm betting that working at Wizards of the Coast right now is like a game of Paranoia, except that you don't get 6 clones and you just kind of, you just experience misery as you go. That's kind of my expectation on that one. So, yeah, just say the wrong thing, get fired. Remember, Cynthia Williams is your friend. Your friend, Cynthia Williams. Yeah. You get unemployment and you get unemployment. Yeah. There are AI tools to add frames if you slow it down. The problem is it's just, yeah, we'll just have to see. It's just too big of a file. I'm going to see if I can get it to a smaller file, which will probably be, shrinking it down here. Yeah. Now I've got DaVinci or Resolve rendering it to see if I can get it a little lower. Yeah. All right. Every time a company does something like this, the rank and file pay for it hard. Just imagine what their customer support people are going through. Yep. I really, I would not want to be one of the people answering on their phones, answering their phones there right now. I suspect they're getting a lot of people who are just like phoning up to yell, and that's not useful. That's not great. Those people don't have any, like, their job is to prevent Cynthia Williams from hearing those complaints. So yelling at them doesn't help. So yeah. I see. Hey, anything to be on a stream with Ian? I don't have a parrot. Sorry, Secret McSquirrel. Yeah, fair enough. Again, what sort of monster is Cynthia Williams? Got to be some sort of aberration from Far Realm. The parrots are, parrots are nice there. Yeah. Please be nice to the ones that answer the phones. Yep. So yeah, and I mean, the thing is that apparently some people have harassed employees, which isn't okay. this also actually helps Wizards of the Coast, because if I was Wizards of the Coast PR people, I can tell you how I would be looking to deflect from some of this. You better believe that I would be putting something out there going, look at how they're treating our poor customer service representatives. Isn't this unfair? And yeah, we'll just, that'd be sort of a way they might try to dodge this. Let's see if I can just, this new version I might be able to put up as brand content. Did I see recently that there's a role of law Discord now? There is. Someone talented, please make a Paranoia MMO. Okay, thanks. Yep. Do you think someone broke an NDA to leak that OGL 1.1? I do, but they got to track them down if they're going to sue them. And then they may not want to sue them because I feel like that's a PR mistake if they do that. So, yeah. Well, Wizards of the Coast, if you didn't treat your customer service reps as human shields, yeah, that's true. Corporations exist to increase shareholder value. Full stop. End of story. Vote with your money. That is absolutely true. The only thing that they care about is this affecting subscriptions? And especially they care about those subscriptions because their hope is to have everyone on a subscription model. And if they see that those subscriptions are a threat, like are under threat, then that'll be a concern for them. So let's see if I can run the trailer again and hopefully have it less choppy. Let me know if this looks okay. I may have to work on it because the original footage I slowed down, and I think what I'm going to have to do is just loop it. So it'll go faster, like the sort of moving down the street thing will go faster. But yeah. So somebody says, anyone else always look for where the repeat starts? That is one cycle. So there isn't a repeat in that one yet, but yeah. So I think that's pretty solid. I think that sort of carries the feel. Blades in the Dark, if you don't know it, is basically a game of pseudo-Victorian London / Prague in a world where most of the world is covered with hungry ghosts, and they use lightning fences to keep them out. And those lightning fences are powered by hauling up, chthonic style monsters from the deep to drain of their, magic. So produced by Hideo Kojima, lol. I will take that as a compliment. Yeah, I'll work on it. I think I can get it a little better there, but and in that setting, you run heists. That's what you do, is you run heists. So I will post up like a thing to try to recruit some people for for that. And I see somebody noting Blades in the Dark is the setting of Dishonored with the names filed off. Yes, with a few more changes, but kinda, yeah. So I think it's really newbie friendly. I would kind of like to run that just to say, hey, this is a good game to bring newbies to. So, all right. So that's about it. We've reviewed those things. As a lawyer, when I read this kind of PR statement, you can kind of see the places where they're weaseling, right? Because lawyers deal with lots of lawyers. And so you start seeing the omissions that people make in their promises, because a lot of lawyers like to play the, well, I never promised this game. And you kind of learn, in criminal law, there's only so many lawyers around, so you kind of learn like these are the people I can work with and these are the people I can't. But the signs of somebody who you just can't trust are all in this, right? The signs of somebody who is sketchy are 100% in there. So there's all of these places that just stand out as weasel spots. So yeah, I think the Paizo thing is promising, but I want to tell people to be careful, be cautious, because we haven't seen the ORC license yet. And they can promise all sorts of stuff. And if they don't deliver in the final document, then it's trash, ultimately. And you better believe that once I see the full document, and assuming I'm not seeing the document under an NDA or anything like that, once it's sort of finally released, I will do a review of it and say, like, here's the stuff I like, here's the stuff I don't like, because I can guarantee you there's going to be stuff in it I don't like, right? You're never going to see a document that's entirely stuff you like. But yeah, anyway, thank you guys for joining me. It's I really enjoy this kind of stuff. I want to do more, like, part of why I want to do more just gaming stuff where I don't have to be talking about legal sketchy stuff, because I've got an entire other channel for legally sketchy stuff. So why am I having to do that on this, which is supposed to be my fun channel? This is supposed to be my lighthearted, like, let's get together and have fun stuff going on channel. I hope to get back to that. All right. So I see somebody saying, how do we join your Discord? I'll post something up. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to get you an invite. I just have to fire up Discord again because I shut it down because I was getting so many notifications. Give me 1 second and I will post in the chat a link, or I'll throw it in the description here, a link to the Discord. Invite people. There's a server invite. Edit description. So I just updated the description. Oh, wait. I can't edit this. I'm not trying to edit the schedule. I'm just, it won't let me edit. All right. So there is the Discord link in the chat. Am I going to get bots? Yeah, there's probably going to be bots, but we're going to do what I can to keep the bots down. But there you go. Now I'm getting spammed with people joining the thing. So welcome aboard. Please do have a look at the rules. The rules are basically just don't be a jerk in really long and convoluted formats. But I mean, if anybody wants to give me grief over the rules, I will certainly listen. But yeah, thank you guys for joining me. See you next time. Oh, and I should catch one more super chat before we go here. Thank you so much for the commentary. And well, thank you very much. It's much appreciated. All right. See you guys later. And I hit the wrong button. I hit the leave stream instead of end stream. All right. Now we're going to do this the right way. All right. See you, folks.